Okay, this is not a long process, and it doesn't really need, there's not going to be an end product. It doesn't really need some of the steps that I usually do, but I really think that it's important because if your infusion goes rancid, you're going to have a lot of wasted product, a lot of wasted oil, and you're going to be behind in your schedule if you're using it for your end product. So I suggest that this procedure be as sanitary as you can make it. So I've got my bottles and my tongs in the boiling water with a little bit of bleach. I just went like clink and out. And I'm going to put it on paper, upside down, dry it, and I'll let it dry. But for now, every time I come back here, because I'm going to step away for a few minutes, I'm going to put on new gloves and a new mask. So I really didn't need to have this on right now, but I want to have it on so that when I alcohol things that still need to be alcoholed, I have gloves on and I have a mask. Otherwise, there's really no sense to it. Now, I said you got to have your alcohol spritzer, and you'll see that I alcohol a lot. Well, the first thing I want to alcohol is my bottle, because these bottles have been through the mill. Sometimes you can have two bottles, and you can use one to alcohol the other, vice versa. But I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to alcohol my scale, and then I'm going to alcohol the outside of all of my oils. For this infusion, I'm only going to be using 2 oils. I usually use 3. I'm not going to bring in my sunflower, which is usually 60% of my infusion, because you have to calculate the rosemary extract. So rather than confuse you, I'm just going to use this extra virgin olive oil and this apricot oil. Now, I'm alcoholing the outside of my bottles. I mean, I use these bottles, and they get, kinds of grunge, and, you can't see the bacteria that's on these products. So before you open your herbs, you bring out your bottles, you make sure that everything that's going to come into contact gets alcoholed. This is my vitamin E. Now this comes in a nice stainless steel bottle. It's, it's a good medium, but I still want to put that down. Now if I were making a scrub or something, I would have my recipe written on here, like I said before. I would hold my recipe book in my hand, write it down, take my gloves off, put my book away, come back, put on new gloves, and begin again. But I don't need to write a recipe down. But what I do need is a Sharpie so that I can write down the different amounts that go in here. So I'm going to get a Sharpie, I'm going to alcohol it, and I'm going to put it next to my scale. My scale has been alcoholed, so I'm going to put a paper towel on it. Okay, it did not look like, from the outside of the bottles, that there was anything on them. They look perfectly clean. But this is my paper towel. So obviously, there's dirt somewhere that I couldn't see until I alcoholed it. Okay, so here's my pen. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to actually take a new paper towel and alcohol my pen. I can tell you that people think I'm completely insane for this, but if you want a very, very clean environment, you'll do as much as you can to ensure that. So in this boiling water, I have my 2 bottles that I'm going to use, the tops, the rings, and my tongs. So I'm going to heat and hold this for 20 minutes and then bring it out. While you were away, I damn near set the house on fire. My paper towel's a little too close to the flame. And so I take out my tongs, my first tong that was in the boiling water. And even though it's been boiling, I'm going to spritz it with alcohol before I take my jars out. So here are my jars. I have them upside down drying. And you'll notice that one of my tops, it looks like it's getting a little rusty. And it also has the last infusion that I did. So what you can do with this is, if it's rusty, you want to throw it away. But if it just has the lettering on it, you can pretty much scratch it off. But you want to make sure that none of this stuff is coming off of the cap, because you don't want this, whatever it is, in your infusion. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to get a brand new lid, which means I'm going to be down a lid. And I'm going to alcohol the new lid, because this I'm just not going to use. This is just unacceptable to me. So when you reuse these lids, and you can buy these separately, you have to check them every single time for possible rust or degradation, because your infusion is going to sit in this ring with this ring on it. Not really going to touch it. But if you notice, this is coming off. This means, now this is the ring that of the one that I'm not using, so I'm not going to use the ring either. So if you notice, I did not see that rust on there. I saw some of it on the round part, but I didn't see it on the ring. But it's obviously there. So I'm not going to use this. I'm going to throw it out. And one way to avoid this is not to put it in the dishwasher, and to have an extra set of tops around. So I buy these by the case, and it's a good idea to buy a thing of lids by themselves. So hand wash these as possible, and make sure that you're looking after every single time you're about to use it, that you wipe it down really carefully, and you can see if there's any rust on it or not. I mean, I'm kind of appalled at the amount of rust that's on here. So water is the enemy of all of your infusions. Water and air. You don't want water or air. So I've done this in other videos. Sometimes I'll use a hair dryer, but a lot of times I want to do it by hand. So I'll take my sterilized tongue and I'll go in and I'll make sure. Now, how you can tell if you've gotten all the moisture is you turn it upside down, and if mist forms inside, there's still moisture in it. So you want to make sure that you have it upside down for a few minutes, make sure there's absolutely no mist, and you can see this one, there's mist. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to get a new paper towel. I'm going to spritz it with alcohol. I'm going to put this in here with my tongs. I'm going to wipe out any moisture. You know, sometimes if I really am on a deadline or I really don't have a lot of time, I'll use a hairdryer, but that's still another thing that you're going to introduce into this environment. So you have to do alcohol that as well. So I'm going to let these sit for a few minutes and see if any mist forms. And if it doesn't, we're good to go. Okay, we're ready to get going with our first infusion. I'm going to put my bottle there and I'm going to tear it out. But I'm going to note that it was 369 grams is the bottle. Sometimes when you're doing infusions or other things, your scale might kick off or something, and you can only put it back with the product. So you want to make sure you know to deduct the bottle if that happens and you have to reweigh something, including the bottle. Now, I'm going to use Arnica, and I have alcohol the outside of this, and like I said, this is very, very expensive. Now, only buy from certified growers where they can give you a certificate of authenticity. If they say something's organic, they can give you the organic certificate. And they're not just going to send it. You have to ask. You have to ask about the sourcing. You have to ask exactly where do they get this from, how do they grow it. A lot of places that are very reputable will have this on their website. So I'm making a mess here, so I'm going to have to clean everything really well for my second infusion. Now, when you first start doing infusions, you're going to notice that sometimes you've overfilled the oil with herb. And if you've got something, like I recently did St. John's wort, I think. No, it was chamomile. And it was chamomile. And I had put in too much chamomile. And it absorbed so much oil. I lost so much oil. And you don't want to do that. Like, you don't want to lose oil. So I couldn't squeeze the oil out of the chamomile. So I usually do halfway up. And for something like Arnica, this is pretty good. And there are little tick marks on the bottle. So this says 6. This is a 32 ounce. And this is at 16. So 16 is halfway. I thought it said 6. It's like, that can't be right. Okay, so it's just about 6, but you can see there are some, some spots where it's... Now, I want to keep my hands out of this, as much as I can. You want to be very conscious of how many times you're touching your product, you're touching your oil. Even if you've got gloves on, you want to minimize the contact. So right now I have 30 grams or 1 ounce, and that's about right. Most of the herbs that you're going to use, you're going to find that halfway is about 1 ounce. So now I'm going to put in extra virgin olive oil, and because I'm not using sunflower, I'm going to have 80% of this be extra virgin olive oil. So if it's 32 ounces, %, is going to be about 25 ounces. So I'm going to tear this out. And it doesn't have to be exact. You just have to know for pricing how much you have in your product. I try to standardize it because it makes it easier for me in the end. So I want to put in 24 ounces, 25 ounces, and see what that looks like. Now this is 23.8, and I still have to put in apricot and vitamin E. So 24.5. Okay, 25. Now, I want to make sure my 1 ounce of vitamin E makes it into this. So I'm going to put that in first. I'm going to tear this out. And I'm going to put in my 1 ounce of vitamin E. Because I guarantee for my customers that all of my infused oils have an ounce of vitamin E. Now I want you to look at this coming out of the bottle. It's a amber colored liquid, and it's pretty viscous. So if you get vitamin E that doesn't look like this, it's not vitamin E. It might contain vitamin E, but it's not straight vitamin E. So make sure for your labeling and your end products that you know exactly the nature of your vitamin E, because it's really, really important. There I go. 1 ounce of vitamin E. Now, I want to leave a little bit at the top, but air and water are the enemy of infusions. So I'm probably going to go for another ounce, because right now I have 25 ounces of extra virgin olive oil. I have 1 ounce of herb. I have 1 ounce of vitamin E. So even though this is a 32 ounce jar, it doesn't look like I'm going to, that's 27. It doesn't look like I'm going to fit 5 ounces in there. Let me tear this out and see where we get to. Yeah, we're not going to get to 5. So I would say put it on the middle ring. It's right around the middle ring. You want to leave some so that you can shake it, but not so much. So that is 2.4. I mean, that's like half. So right now I have 25 ounces of extra virgin olive oil. I have 1 ounce of herb. And I have 1 ounce of vitamin E. And now I have 2.4 ounces. I want to see what that is in grams. 140. It's going between 146 and 150 grams. Okay, so we'll say 150 grams. This is just to double check. So what I actually have in this jar is 29.4 ounces, and this is a 32 ounce jar. So don't know why that is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brand new ring that I just got. I'm going to alcohol it. I'm going to rub it dry. Even though alcohol is not water, you want it to be as free of any kind of liquid as you can get it. So, I'm going to put that on top. I'm going to put the ring on. Now, it's really important to make this as tight as you possibly can, because you're going to leak oil no matter what. So I look at that. There's not a lot of room in there, but there's some room. You could probably add some more apricot oil at this point. I think I'm going to leave this alone, but you have to weigh out evaporation versus, you know, the problems of opening it again. Like I want it sealed. So there's two things I'm going to do now. I'm going to put what's on this in here, and I can tell you that when this leaks out, and I shake it every day, even though they say you only have to do it the first couple of days, I do it every single day. Morning and night, I turn my bottles upside down. But I am going to put a tag on this. I'm going to put a code on it, and I'm going to write 25 ounces of extra virgin olive oil, 1 ounce of Arnica, 1 ounce of vitamin E, 2.4 ounces of apricot oil, the date on which I infused it. I'm going to write it on the cap because it helps me when I'm turning it upside down to realize, you know, which one's coming up to be bottled. And I'm also going to put it in my Borum and Peas journal. So that's that. So now I'm going to clean up my area, get everything re-alcoholed, and ready for the second infusion.